James Clark had never missed a single morning in 12 years. Every day at 6:30, he'd kiss his sleeping wife Sarah on the forehead, tiptoe past his daughter Emily's room, where revision notes still covered her desk, and ruffle his son Oliver's hair as the boy dreamed. By 7, he was unlocking the gates of Riverside Secondary School, where he worked as the head caretaker. Everyone knew James. The teachers relied on him. The students respected him. He fixed broken desks, cleaned flooded corridors, and always had a kind word for the lonely kids eating lunch alone. But what most people didn't know was what he did after work. 3 evenings a week, James stayed late in the small storage shed behind the school. Inside, he'd built a humble woodworking station. For 5 years, he'd been teaching himself carpentry, crafting small stools, shelves, and toys. His dream was simple but beautiful, to open a little workshop where he could teach woodworking. 2 young people who'd lost their way, just like he had once years ago. He was so close now. The community center had approved his proposal. In 2 months, his workshop would open. Emily had even designed the sign. Clark's Workshop, building skills, building lives. At home, James was the glue that held everything together. Sarah worked part-time at a care home, but James managed all the bills, the shopping, the repairs. Emily was preparing for her Ellie Vales and hoped to study medicine. She often stayed up late revising, and James would bring her tea and biscuits, saying, "You'll be a brilliant doctor, love. I just know it." Oliver, 12 and football mad, worshipped his dad. Every Saturday, James took him to the park for a kickabout. Those moments under the open sky, laughing and running, were sacred. Then, one Thursday evening in March, everything shattered. James came home looking pale. "He's tired," he said, forcing a smile. But by Friday morning, he couldn't get out of bed. His skin was burning. His breathing was shallow. His hands trembled uncontrollably. Sarah tried to stay calm. "It's just the flu, love. You'll be fine." But by Saturday, James was delirious. His temperature spiked to dangerous levels. Red blotches appeared across his chest and arms. His heartbeat was wild and irregular. The ambulance came screaming down their quiet street at the hospital. Doctors rushed him into emergency. Tests were ordered. Machines beeped frantically. The family waited in a cold corridor, holding each other. Emily stopped revising. Oliver stopped playing. Sarah stopped sleeping. The consultants came and went, their faces grave and confused. Blood tests showed infection, but nothing made sense. Antibiotics weren't working. His organs were starting to fail. One word began to echo through the sterile hallways: hopeless. And in a corner of the intensive care ward, a young junior doctor named Rachel Bennett stood watching, her heart breaking for a family she didn't even know yet. The Clark family had never felt so small. They sat outside the ICU as senior consultant Dr. Sharma explained the situation for the 3rd time. His voice was steady, professional, but his eyes betrayed something worse: defeat. "We've tried broad-spectrum antibiotics, antivirals, and steroids," he said. "His blood shows severe inflammation, but we can't identify the source. His kidneys are struggling, his heart rate is unstable. I'm sorry, but we're running out of options." Sarah's hands shook. "There must be something, please. He's strong. He's never been ill." Dr. Sharma softened. "I know, but sometimes the body fights something we simply cannot see." They brought in specialists: an infectious disease expert from London, a cardiologist, a nephrologist. Each one reviewed James's case, ran more tests, tried different treatments. Nothing worked. Emily sat in the hospital cafe, her untouched coffee going cold. Her best friend texted her about revision schedules, university offers, normal 17-year-old. Concerns, but Emily's world had stopped. She kept replaying her last real conversation with her dad. He'd been planning the workshop. He'd smiled. He'd been fine. Oliver refused to leave the waiting room. He sat clutching his father's old football scarf, rocking slightly, silent. Sarah tried to comfort him, but she was drowning too. Bills were piling up. The school had sent flowers. Neighbors were kind. But none of it mattered. On the 8th day, Dr. Sharma called them into a private room. "I'm truly sorry," he said quietly. We've done everything we can. His body isn't responding. You should prepare yourselves. Sarah collapsed. Emily caught her mother, tears streaming down her own face. Oliver just stared at the floor. Outside the room, Dr. Rachel Bennett had been standing nearby, reviewing patient files. She wasn't assigned to James Clark's case. She was too junior, too inexperienced. She'd only finished her foundation training 6 months ago, but she'd been watching, listening, reading his notes late at night, and she should have been sleeping. Something didn't sit right. Rachel had seen the test results. She'd noticed the pattern in his symptoms, and she'd seen something in the notes that everyone else had dismissed, a slightly elevated eosinophil count from the very first blood test. Buried in the data, ignored because everything else looked like sepsis. That night, Rachel went home to her tiny flat and didn't sleep. She pulled out her medical textbooks, searched journals, cross-referenced symptoms. Her hands trembled as the pieces slowly fell into place. By dawn, she knew what she had to do. It was terrifying. She could be wrong. She could make things worse. Senior doctors had already given up. Who was she? A junior doctor with barely any real-world experience to challenge them. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Sarah's face. Emily's tears. Oliver's empty stare. She thought of why she'd become a doctor in the first place. The next morning, Rachel walked into Dr. Sharma's office. "I need to talk to you about James Clark," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I think I know what's wrong." Dr. Sharma looked up from his desk, surprised. "Dr. Bennett, Mr. Clark isn't your patient. I know, sir, but I've been reviewing his case." Rachel placed a folder on his desk, her notes neatly organized. "Everyone's been treating this as sepsis, but the antibiotics haven't worked because it's not a bacterial infection." Dr. Sharma frowned. "We've tested for everything." "Not everything." Rachel's heart pounded. His eosinophil count was elevated on day 1. It's rare. But there's a condition called eosinophilic myocarditis, triggered by parasitic infection or severe allergic reaction. It mimics sepsis but attacks the heart muscle directly. Standard sepsis treatment can actually make it worse. This senior consultant studied her notes. His expression shifted from skepticism to consideration. "This is possible, but it's extraordinarily rare. And if you're wrong, he's dying anyway," Rachel said softly. "The family's been told to say goodbye. If I'm right, we have maybe 24 hours before his heart fails completely. If I'm wrong," she swallowed hard, "if I'm wrong, I'll accept full responsibility." There was a long silence. Dr. Sharma looked at this young doctor, barely experienced. Standing before him with conviction burning in her eyes. "What do you need?" he finally asked. "High-dose corticosteroids and plasmapheresis to filter his blood. We need to start immediately." Within an hour, Rachel was standing at James Clark's bedside. Sarah, Emily, and Oliver watched from the doorway as this young doctor they'd never met explained her theory. "I can't promise anything," Rachel told them honestly. "But I believe your husband is fighting something different than what we've been treating. I'd like your permission to try." Sarah's voice broke. "Will it hurt him?" "No. But there are risks, more than doing nothing." Emily asked, her jaw set firm. Rachel met her eyes. "No." "Then do it," Sarah whispered. "Please." The treatment began. For the first 12 hours, nothing changed. James remained unconscious, his vitals unstable. Rachel stayed by his bedside, monitoring every breath, every heartbeat. Then, at hour 14, alarms screamed. His blood pressure crashed. His heart rhythm became chaotic. Crash teams rushed in. Rachel's treatment was failing. He was dying. "The plasmapheresis," Dr. Sharma ordered. "Prepare rhesus." Rachel stood frozen, watching the chaos, her mind screaming. What did I miss? What did I do wrong? They shocked James's heart once. Twice. On the third shock, his rhythm stabilized. Barely. But he was worse now than before she'd started. The family was escorted out, sobbing. Rachel walked to the staff room and sat in the dark, shaking. She'd been so sure. She'd studied everything, checked every detail. She'd failed him. She'd failed them all. She'd put her head in her hands, tears finally coming. Then, through her despair, a thought flickered. The crash happened exactly 14 hours in, right when the corticosteroids would have started suppressing his inflammatory response. If it was eosinophilic myocarditis, as a sudden reduction in inflammation could cause, it's a temporary shock as the body adjusted. It wasn't failure, it was the disease fighting back, which meant she was right. But she'd stopped too soon. Rachel's head snapped up. She ran back to ICU. "We have to continue," she told Dr. Sharma urgently. "The crash was an inflammatory rebound. We need to push through it. Dr. Bennett, his body nearly gave out because the treatment is working. Please, trust me. Just 12 more hours." Dr. Sharma looked at James, at the monitors, at this junior doctor who refused to give up. "What?" 12 hours, he said. "But I'm staying with you." The night stretched endlessly. Rachel and Dr. Sharma took turns monitoring James, adjusting dosages, watching for any sign, good or bad. The family waited outside, exhausted, clinging to a hope they barely understood. Hour 16. James's temperature began to drop, slowly. Hour 18. His heart rhythm steadied, just slightly. Hour 20. His breathing deepened. His color began to return. At hour 23, James Clark opened his eyes. The monitors beeped steadily. The fever had broken. His organs, pushed to the very edge, began to stabilize. Dr. Sharma checked the readings 3 times, disbelief giving way to amazement. "You were right," he said quietly to Rachel. "You actually saved him." But Rachel wasn't listening. She was watching the doorway where Sarah had just appeared, frozen in shock. "He's awake," Rachel said softly. "You can see him." Sarah stumbled forward, tears pouring down her face. "James. James. Love." His voice was weak but clear. "Sarah." She took his hand, sobbing. Emily and Oliver rushed in behind her. Oliver climbed carefully onto the bed, burying his face in his father's shoulder. Emily held his other hand, shaking with relief. "Dad," she whispered, "we thought we'd lost you." "Not yet, love," James managed, his eyes wet. "Not yet." The family held each other, weeks of terror dissolving into overwhelming gratitude. Later, when James was stronger, Sarah found Rachel in the corridor. "I don't know how to thank you," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Every other doctor gave up. But you didn't even know us. Why did you fight so hard?" Rachel thought about it. "Because he's not just a patient," she said. "He's a father, a husband, someone's whole world that matters. It always matters." Sarah hugged her tightly. "You gave us our life back." 3 weeks later, James was discharged. His recovery would take months, but the prognosis was good. The community center agreed to postpone the workshop opening until he was ready. On his last day in hospital, James asked to speak to Rachel. "My daughter wants to be a doctor," he said. "She's brilliant, but she's been worried she won't be good enough, that she'll make mistakes." Rachel smiled. "She will make mistakes. We all do. But you didn't give up." "No," Rachel agreed. "I didn't." James reached into his bag and pulled out a small wooden box, beautifully crafted. "I made this for you. It's not much, but it's perfect," Rachel said, her eyes stinging with tears. Carved into the lid were simple words: "Never stop believing." 6 months later, Clark's workshop opened in the community center. James stood beside the sign his daughter had designed, Oliver at his side, Sarah beaming proudly. 20 young people signed up for the first course. Among them were 2 teenagers who'd been excluded from school, 1 care leaver, and a young man recovering from addiction. James taught them to measure, to cut, to sand, to build. But more than that, he taught them what Dr. Rachel Bennett had taught him, that even when everything seems lost, even when experts give up, even when hope seems foolish, some people will still fight for you. And sometimes that makes all the difference. Dr. Bennett went on to specialize in rare diseases. She never forgot James Clark, the case that almost broke her. The family that taught her why medicine wasn't just about knowledge. It was about humanity. Because every patient is someone's entire world, and every life is worth fighting for, no matter what. Asterisk.